This is the story of Dr. Shaun Murphy, a young surgeon with autism and Savant syndrome. He gave up a quiet rural life to join the surgical department of the prestigious San Jose Street Bonaventure Hospital. Watch how he adapts to a new environment and complex social dynamics, proving to his colleagues that his extraordinary medical skills can save lives. A young boy is struck by falling glass, causing massive bleeding from his neck. A passing doctor rushes over and presses a cloth to the wound to stop the bleeding. But Shaun takes one quick look and immediately says the doctor's doing it wrong and could kill the boy.
I'm saving his life. He was bleeding out.
You would be in the right place if he were an adult. He's not an adult. He is a boy, which means you're also putting pressure on his trachea, which means he's not currently breathing.
He steps in and shifts the doctor's hand slightly. Sure enough, the boy starts breathing again. Then Shaun begins carefully examining the boy, discovering another piece of glass embedded in his abdomen. He spreads the boy's arms and observes the veins. Inside his mind, a detailed anatomical map takes shape. This allows him to quickly diagnose a punctured left lung, and without surgery, the boy won't survive. Shaun asks the crowd if anyone has a knife, but since they're in an airport, carrying knives is obviously not allowed. So he instructs the doctor to continue mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Then, without a word, Shaun heads to the security checkpoint and grabs a confiscated knife. He runs back with an odd gait, but unsurprisingly, he's tackled by security guards. Thankfully, the boy's mother shows up just in time to explain the situation, allowing Shaun to proceed with the emergency surgery. Shaun brings over 2 bottles of strong alcohol, lays out a tube and the knife, and starts disinfecting the boy's abdomen. He cuts the tube, inserts one end into a bottle, then locates the second intercostal space and makes a firm incision. He slides the other end of the tube into the boy's lung. As trapped air escapes from the lung, the boy is stabilized. The crowd bursts into applause at this unexpected yet life-saving operation. What no one realized was that this awkward young man is actually autistic. His dream is to become a surgeon, but no hospital would hire him. On the ambulance ride to the hospital, Shaun notices an abnormal heart rate on the monitor, but the paramedics dismiss him and treat everything he says like nonsense. Shaun pleads with the doctor to perform an echocardiogram on the boy, but the doctor is more focused on getting rid of unauthorized personnel, and Shaun is kicked out of the hospital. But Shaun refuses to give up, because to him, a patient's life must never be taken lightly. He keeps trying to enter the hospital, only to be stopped by security each time. Rain begins to fall from the sky, as if mourning the injustice Shaun is facing. Luckily, in the operating room, the attending surgeon notices Adam's irregular heartbeat. He remembered what Shaun had said, so he immediately went to find him and asked why Shaun wanted to do an ultrasound. Shaun explains that Adam might be suffering from pericardial effusion. As the ultrasound results come in, they invite Shaun into the operating room. With just a glance at the heart monitor, Shaun pinpoints the issue. A piece of glass has traveled through a blood vessel into the heart. Emergency heart surgery is the only option, but it's a serious procedure. None of the doctors present are willing to make such a decision on the spot. So the hospital board holds an emergency meeting. Most of them can't bring themselves to trust the judgment of someone with autism, until suddenly, footage of Shaun saving the boy at the airport goes viral online, gaining over 200,000 likes. After seeing his calm, precise actions, the board finally agrees to Shaun's plan. The heart surgery begins at once. Just as Shaun predicted, a shard of glass is removed from the heart, saving Adam's life. Shaun is then offered a position as a surgical resident. When asked why he wants to be a doctor, Shaun gives his heartfelt answer.
My brother went to heaven in front of my eyes. I couldn't save them. It's sad. Should have become adults. They should have had children of their own and love those children. And I want to make that possible for other people.
Though he stammers, the sincerity in his words is undeniable. The hospital board sees his determination and makes an exception by hiring him. From this moment on, Shaun officially begins his journey as a surgeon. Every patient Shaun diagnoses either has a tumor or a serious illness. The woman in front of him is no exception. Shaun bluntly tells her there's a large tumor in her body. The other doctors quickly pulled Shaun aside and told him he shouldn't tell the patient the worst-case scenario, because it could worsen the patient's condition. To teach Shaun a lesson, Neil assigns him to handle difficult and obscure cases. On the surface, it's about gaining experience, but in reality, these are the tasks that most surgeons try to avoid. Still, Shaun accepts the assignment without hesitation. Neil is baffled. Why is Shaun so obedient?
You're very arrogant. Arrogant people don't think they need to lie. So you must be doing this to teach me. I look forward to learning from scut work.
Shaun then throws himself into his work with full dedication. Worried about missing anything, he orders dozens of tests for each patient. Like this man who only got water in his ear, Shaun has the nurse schedule an MRI to check his brain. Turns out the man's perfectly fine and wasted a ton of money. At this point, Shaun has no idea he's caused a stir. He's busy examining a little girl named Martine. Her parents think she's just faking sick to skip school, but Shaun doesn't agree. He immediately orders dozens of tests again. When Neil heard what happened, he pulled Shaun aside with a stern face and scolded him. Although Martine had already been discharged, Shaun Shaun remained stubborn. He even paid out of his own pocket to run more tests for her. That night, the results finally came in, but as Shaun looked at the report, his expression turned increasingly serious. He rushed out of the hospital and arrived at Martine's home in the middle of the night. He knocked on the door urgently, but her father warned him he was disturbing the peace. Shaun tried to explain, but the man insisted he come back tomorrow.
She may not be alive in the morning.
Shaun's blunt way of speaking pushed the man over the edge. He shouted at Shaun, calling him a freak, and slammed the door shut, but Shaun didn't give up. He knocked again.
Part of my weirdness is that I perseverate. That means I keep thinking about things. So I will keep knocking on your door until I know Martine is okay.
Finally, his words got through to Martine's parents and they let him in. That's when they realized Martine was already unconscious in bed. They rushed her to the hospital while Shaun performed CPR on the way and got her into the emergency room. Using ultrasound, Shaun examined the girl. With just one look, he determined that her small intestine had twisted around an artery. She needed emergency surgery immediately. The nurse hesitated to act on Shaun's decision, but Shaun didn't care about the rules. To him, a life was at stake. Taking the risk of breaking protocol, he made a call to reserve an operating room. The surgery went smoothly, and Martine pulled through. Shaun stood outside her room, watching silently. The hospital president asked why he wasn't going inside to receive thanks from the family. Shaun replied that he was afraid his bluntness would hurt people again. But with some encouragement from the president, Shaun finally found the courage to accept the family's gratitude. While we call Shaun a great doctor, there's no doubt what he cares about most is the safety of his patients. Shaun was about to perform a liver surgery right there in the middle of the street. A detailed image of the liver formed in his mind, allowing him to pinpoint the blood clot. With a small knife, he made a precise incision in the liver. His partner reached in with a clamp, and sure enough, pulled out the clot. Then Shaun took a plastic straw, cleaned it with alcohol, and inserted it into the liver. He injected a special solution that helps keep cells alive. Just like that, the liver started functioning again. Even the police on the scene were stunned. One day, Shaun was assigned a new task. A patient at the hospital had finally matched with a donor liver, but the liver was all the way in San Francisco. Because a liver can only survive outside the body for 8 hours, Shaun's mission was to get it back to the hospital in time. To save time, he flew there by helicopter. But when they picked up the liver in its cooler, they were told it had already been removed from the donor 3 hours ago. That meant their window of time had been cut drastically. Then things got worse. The pilot told Shaun and Claire that they couldn't fly back. The heavy fog made flying impossible. Their only option now was to travel by land. They had no choice but to call for a police escort. But halfway through the journey, they realized the temperature inside the cooler was rising. If it got too warm, the liver would lose its viability. With only 3 hours and 20 minutes left, they finally found a convenience store. Claire loaded the cooler with all the ice cream from the freezer to try and bring the temperature down. But it didn't work. That's when Shaun noticed a nearby slushy machine. He suggested pouring the ice-cold slush inside the cooler. Only ice water could cool it quickly enough. Sure enough, it worked. The temperature inside the cooler returned to a safe range. After all their struggles, Shaun finally delivered the liver to the hospital, with 57 minutes to spare. But just then, they received heartbreaking news. The transplant couldn't proceed, not because they failed in their duties, but because the patient had drunk a small glass of champagne 3 days before surgery. According to transplant guidelines, patients must avoid alcohol for at least 6 months. Because of that, the liver had to go to someone else. The liver was handed off to a different hospital. Claire was visibly disappointed, but Shaun said something that comforted her. In Shaun's eyes, all lives are equal. A life doesn't become more valuable just because it passed through his hands. It was a clumsy way to comfort someone, but it worked. Claire finally came to terms with it. Their efforts weren't wasted. Barb was 6 months pregnant when doctors discovered something shocking. Alongside her baby, there was a tumor the size of a fist. Dr. Neal, her attending physician, recommended terminating the pregnancy. But Barb didn't just want to keep the baby. She also wanted the tumor removed. The surgery would be extremely risky. Neal couldn't guarantee success. If a blood clot formed, it could mean losing both mother and child. Her husband, Mark, wanted to protect Barb's life. He believed they could always try for another child. Everyone was torn, until Shaun offered a bold idea. They could temporarily remove the baby, excise the tumor, and place the baby back in the womb. And by injecting heparin before surgery, they could increase the chances of success. Neal's face turned pale at the proposal. Not just because Shaun challenged him publicly, but because the surgery would be incredibly difficult. One mistake could destroy his career. But moved by Barb's maternal love, Neal agreed to try. Mark, however, was furious. He begged his wife not to go through with it. He loved her too much to risk her life. In the end, Mark said no more. The surgery proceeded as planned. But just as the doctors opened Barb's abdomen, alarms started going off. Barb had suffered a heart attack. The surgery had to be stopped immediately. When Barb regained consciousness, she begged the doctors to continue. She didn't care about her own life. She just wanted her baby to be born. This time, Mark supported her decision. Everyone turned to Mark in shock, and Neal asked in confusion why he had agreed. The deep love between this couple left Neal speechless, and it also moved the intern, Jared, who was standing nearby. Determined to save both mother and child, Jared stayed up all night studying medical textbooks and eventually found a possible solution. He told the team they could temporarily stop Barb's heart and use an external bypass machine to keep her alive. During that window, they could remove the baby, cut out the tumor, and return the baby to the womb. It was a wild idea, but it avoided the complications of a heart condition. Still, the risks were immense. No one could say for sure it would work, yet the couple agreed without hesitation. The surgery began again. They connected Barb to the machine, and her heart slowly came to a stop. The doctors opened her up, delivered the baby, and used an electric scalpel to remove the fist-sized tumor. Finally, they placed the baby back into Barb's womb. All of Barb's vital signs were stable. The surgery was a success. As Barb slowly opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was her husband's warm smile. In that moment, she knew all their efforts had been worth it. For the next 4 months, all she needed to do was rest in bed, and soon they'd welcome a new member to the family. It's hard not to be moved by the greatness of a mother's love. Evan only had a broken arm, but Shaun insisted he had brain cancer. Shaun waved his fingers a few times in front of Evan's face, and just by observing the slight tremor in his eyes, he determined that something was wrong with Evan's brain. He sent Evan for an MRI. When Neil found out, he scolded Shaun harshly, but then came the shock. The scan revealed an abnormal mass in Evan's brain, most likely a tumor. Shaun broke the news to Evan's parents, only to discover they already knew. 8 months ago, they had taken him to several top hospitals and were told the condition was untreatable. They begged Shaun not to tell Evan the truth. They just wanted him to live his remaining days in peace and happiness. But because Shaun has autism, he couldn't hide his emotions. His attempts at masking the truth didn't fool Evan. Evan kept pressing for answers, and eventually, he learned the heartbreaking reality, yet he accepted it calmly. Because after a few hospital visits, his parents had finally bought him the gaming console he'd always wanted. Evan had figured it out. He just didn't want to break his parents' hearts. But for such a kind, understanding boy to face death so early in life, Shaun couldn't accept it. He made up his mind to save Evan. But the survival rate for brain cancer was worse than winning the lottery. Just when he was running out of hope, Shaun came across a medical report that sparked a new idea. What if Evan didn't have brain cancer? Shaun suspected it might be bone overgrowth instead, and shared this theory with Neil. To confirm it, Evan would need a bone marrow biopsy, but Neil flat out rejected the idea. Evan had already been evaluated by multiple hospitals. The chance that all of them were wrong was just 3 in 1,000. Neil didn't want to give the boy false hope. Still, Shaun told Evan his theory, and with Evan's consent, Shaun planned to secretly collect a sample for testing. But just then, Evan's parents walked into the room and stopped him. They didn't trust Shaun because of his autism and demanded he leave. During the argument, Evan suddenly had a violent coughing fit. He was rushed to the operating room. Doctors successfully removed a clot from one of his arteries. But during the procedure, Neil discovered that the cancer had already spread to Evan's chest. Shaun's 3 in 1,000 theory had officially collapsed. Shaun's face gave nothing away, but afterward, he quietly went to see Evan and apologized. He had given Evan hope, only to lead him into deeper despair. But Evan didn't blame him. He actually thanked Shaun for bringing a little light into his life. In the end, Shaun brought a book to Evan's bedside. It was a gift from his late younger brother, the very person who inspired Shaun to become a surgeon. Now, he wanted to read that story to Evan, to give him the strength to face the final stretch of his life. Doctors stood at the entrance, fully prepped for incoming emergency patients.
Love these blank faces right before Armageddon. Trauma color coding, who knows it?
Green walking, wounded, yellow observation, red needs immediate attention.
The next second, a flood of injured people poured in. A nearby wedding bus had flipped over. Each doctor was assigned patients according to tags. Shaun was given a man with a shattered femur. It was Shaun's first mass casualty incident. He was completely overwhelmed. Farrar gave him a shove to snap him out of it. The man's leg was gushing blood several feet into the air. Shaun pressed down on the wound, but it wasn't enough. His brain kicked into high gear. In a split second, he came up with a solution. Amid skeptical stares, Shaun pulled out a syringe, filled it with air to form a bubble, then plunged it into the man's thigh. When they let go, the bleeding stopped. His blood pressure stabilized. Even the other doctors looked at Shaun with admiration. But still, Marco's leg was in danger. Doctors informed his family they had 2 options. First, amputation, the safest route, but it meant a lifetime in a wheelchair. Second, they could implant a titanium femur, but that came with only a 60% success rate and a 10% chance Marco wouldn't survive. Marco's parents immediately rejected the second option. To them, he was everything. They wouldn't risk his life. But Marco's fiancée had a different view. Marco loved extreme sports. Losing a leg might make him resent them for the rest of his life, and he might never be able to recover from it. Tension rose as both sides argued. Then Shaun suddenly pulled back the blanket and examined Marco's legs. It turned out his other leg was also starting to deteriorate. If they waited much longer, he might lose both legs, or worse. Time was running out. Finally, a lawyer stepped in and gave a fair judgment. Shaun implanted the titanium femur. Marco's vitals remained steady. The surgery was a success. When Marco finally woke up, Shaun asked him to wiggle his toes, but Marco felt nothing. Had the surgery failed after all? Shaun gently ran a pen across the sole of Marco's foot. There was a faint twitch. Marco's leg was starting to regain sensation. Smiles broke across everyone's faces. Marco was incredibly grateful to his fiancée for making that choice. Otherwise, he would have lost his future and spent the rest of his life filled with regret. That doesn't mean his parents were wrong. They simply saw things from a different perspective. No parent ever wants to watch their child die in front of them.